Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Welcome back to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. We are moving right along, and I'm almost getting a little bit sad because our recordings are coming to the end because it's almost the summertime. And usually we take some time off because everyone needs time to rest and restore and get rejuvenated and train. Yep, that's the real reason. And because of all the other reasons as well. But today, I am excited to bring a race director to you. She coins herself as the champion of enthusiasm. So yeah, the champion of enthusiasm. So if you can coin yourself as the champion of enthusiasm, I can only imagine what your races will be like. So I haven't had an opportunity to race with them yet. But if you remember, we had a beginner on, Kelly Ranzier, who said that her first triathlon was what She Tries in Charleston. So for those of you who know She Tries, you probably know who I'm talking about. Well, She Tries has a mission, or a statement they like to say is, if she believes she can, she will. And so I'm excited to bring to the Try Beginners Luck podcast race director Sarah Hayes, who is changing the way women can approach the sport and creating a welcoming and supportive triathlon environment for all women and girls to participate, regardless of their level of experience. And you know, we love a good women's triathlon around here. So welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck, Sarah Hayes. Sarah, how you doing?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. We're so excited. I don't really know where to begin because I think we have so many different angles in which we can, uh, so many angles that we can like get involved. But I think where I want to start is why She Tries.
Yeah. Well, I'm also just so excited to be here. I could talk about triathlon all day and have spent some days doing that. So this is like just what I love to talk about. But She Tries started with my partner, Angela Click. And basically, the short story is there wasn't one here that was dedicated to women in the sport. And we had organizations like Try It for Life that were in the Carolinas training women and mentoring them through training for triathlon. And they didn't have an all women's race to train for in Charleston. So the first Try It for Life group that was in Charleston trained for an event in North Carolina. And then they had to travel for that. And after that, my partner Angie said, you know what, that's ridiculous. We're going to have one here. So she asked some race directors to put one on here. They thought there was no market for it. And all you have to do really is tell Angie no, or that she can't. And then she's just going to work double hard to make it happen. So she did. And she created She Tries. She wanted something where women, everyday women can feel confident to try the sport, whether it's to get healthy, whether it's to, try a new sport, just to try a new challenge, whatever the reason is. She wanted women to feel confident and included and welcome. And I think triathlon has a history of not feeling that way and feeling a bit intimidating, especially in the marketing and in the just how people have perceived it over the year. Most people think triathlon equals Ironman. And so we're just out to educate about the different distances and that, you can start here, stay here, or keep going. And that's why.
All you have to do is say no. That you had me at no. Like, I don't know Angie, and I feel like I've seen her at maybe an
At the
ignorance exchange or something,
yeah.
but sometimes there's so much going on that you don't always get to speak and say hello to everyone who you want to say hello to. But that's like, tell me no, deny me, and that's just gonna make me work that much harder. And so I appreciate that, um, I appreciate that drive because there is a market. And I think to your point of making triathlon a little bit more welcoming and inviting and safe.
Mhm.
That's a good word, especially for women only. I think that's just important, and I appreciate that you guys are doing it, especially in the South Carolina area where there's not a lot of races in that area anyway. And so, as they say, they have this saying, build it and people will come.
Mhm.
So, thank you to She Tries for building something, and you guys have had some expansion.
We have. So
Yeah.
the North Carolina events, formerly known as Ramblin' Rose, are now She Tries. So we've grown from 2 babies to 6, and, this just happened in February, so we've really hit the ground running to, like, try to talk to the communities, let them know that we're here, we're gonna we want to be a part of the community. We want to come and talk to the women. We're Angie and I are on a road show over this month and next month to go and actually talk to women who are just interested and whether they've signed up or not, and just like squash their fears, explain to them what happens and why they should want to do it. And we're meeting with sponsors and partners and members of the community that want to support it. So we've now expanded to Chapel Hill, Winston-Salem, Huntersville, and South Charlotte.
All wonderful places. So, for those of you who are listening and you are in the surrounding areas or, as far as Florida on up and, Virginia, Maryland coming down, you have races if you want to race in women only races. So,
Mhm.
I think that's a good opportunity for you to kind of explore, test the waters. And I think a unique part of some of your races is a lot of them are pool swims.
They all are. Hmm.
Oh, all of them. Okay. I wasn't sure if
Yeah,
Ramblin' Rose was, but all of your tries are pool swims. So tell us about that dynamic and how um, pool swims kind of helps to ease the entry race in for athletes who may be
absolutely.
scared to try open water.
Yeah, well, I wish my first try had been a pool swim. It was not. So there was some trauma there. But the the welcoming part of the pool is that you can see straight down to the bottom. In most cases, you can touch in most parts of the pools that we use. So there have been women who need to stop, if they're not strong swimmers and they feel confident holding onto the wall or putting their feet down for a minute just to catch their breath, and all of that is allowed in our events. You can use any stroke. You're not going to go off course, or if you do, it might be into a lane line. It's not going to be a completely tangent line out into the middle of nowhere hoping a kayaker finds you. um, so there's just a lot of um, ease on that. It's also nicer for spectators. And while they can't be on a pool deck, there's usually fencing around where they can stand and see the swim. And for the women that do our events, it can be kind of emotional. A lot of women are overcoming a fear of swimming or a need to learn how to swim. It's usually the one of the bigger challenges for them to get into the sport. And as you know, because you've done these types of events, your emotions are just right up, right high anyway. And so you get out of that water, and there's often some tears. Our volunteers are crying, the spectators are crying. It's just really special. So it's a perfect way to get introduced into the sport.
Yeah, you mentioned something about trauma and your open water experience, so we'll definitely get into that. But I did my first pool swim very in reverse order. Like I started in a river. My first race was in a river, and then last year I wanted to do the series that USAT was doing, so I picked a race that was local to my area, and I
Hmm.
did it. And for the first time, I did a pool swim. Had never done a pool swim before, but as a swimmer, I was just like, how's this going to go?
Hmm.
It was a really unique experience for me because you have to be seated in the right place. But again, like I kind of know, but I also appreciated it from my friends who weren't comfortable with swimming. And if
Mhm.
you want people to do stuff with you, you sometimes gotta step into their world. And I thought it was great. Like people were singing and having fun on the pool deck, and it was a bananas experience. And I would totally do it again. Um, but it takes me so long to get warmed up in the pool. I just don't like the whole jumping in first in the pool is like really cold, but I don't like cold water. But
Yeah.
anyway, but it's so safe and it's so easy and you don't have to worry about sighting to your point. Or if you run into a lane, you get to run into the pool lane and that keeps you going. So
Right.
it's an opportunity. You have what, eight? So 8 races now
6
total?
now. Mhm.
6. Okay. I got my math wrong. I don't know. I thought you picked up 6 or you picked up 4.
Picked up 4, and we have 2 in the Charleston area.
Okay.
We may be at 8 in another
Maybe
year.
I'm seeing something. I'm
I
like,
know, you're manifesting that for us. Thank you.
8 races? Well, either way, you have 6 races currently that you can um, participate in. And I know one of them probably will kick off before this airs, but that one's coming up in May. And would you like to tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so the one in May is in Mount Pleasant, which is just outside of Charleston, and it is in this beautiful neighborhood called Ion. It is where She Tries began. Angie's very first She Tries event was there. And in pre-COVID days, the race used to sell out in like 48 hours. So it is a smaller event. It can hold up 300 women. And but the neighborhood is gorgeous and the surrounding areas that they'll ride their bikes through. It's a 2-loop course on a bike, so you're not going super far out, and it's easy for spectators to see you coming in on that. The swim takes place at the Ion Club, which is obviously in the Ion neighborhood. And it's just a beautiful facility, and they've gotten better and better every year that we've had the event there. So we're lucky that they host us. And then you run around these lakes within the neighborhood, and volunteers and neighbors are out cheering on their porches. So it's just a really special and unique kind of neighborhood feel. And so we love it. And it's on May 18th. Um, and by the time you hear this, hopefully it will have been a massive success with perfect weather and sell out numbers.
And then from May 18th, there's a race that you can find that will go all the way up until the end of September. So the last weekend in September. So for
Right.
those of you who are looking to try and you're listening and you're like, do I have time to try? Yes, there's plenty of time to do your first sprint. You need about a good 3 to 4 months training, and it's just May-ish now. So
Yes,
plenty of
plenty of
time
time.
to go.
And when you register for She Tries, we give you a free training plan. So while it is way more fun to train with a group, and we can try to recommend those coaches and groups to train with, we also know that some people don't have that um, time, and they just need the structure and do it on their own. So we give you a training plan to get you going.
Love it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to your first time experience when you got started back in 2010. But then I want to segue a little bit in how you became a race director, which I think probably had some um, tracking that journey. So
Yeah.
it's 2010 and you said you wanted to try. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I was on a fitness journey then. I was doing boot camps and running, and a friend had challenged me to sign up for a half marathon. So I was feeling like pretty good about myself. This was pre-kids and everything else. And that same friend asked me to do a triathlon, which I had been hearing little bits about here and there and never done one. And I was like, well, I know how to bike. I mean, who doesn't know how to bike? But I didn't have a bike, like a road bike. I had a cruiser, and I run and I can swim. So I'm sure I can put these things together, right? And at that time, there was only one training group in the area that I could find, and they took themselves very, very seriously. So I went on one group ride with them. I got dropped in the first 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, clearly, this is not like my training group. So I trained just on my own in my neighborhood, or with the friend that asked me to sign up with her. And this particular event was, it was an in between distance, an in between sprint and Olympic distance, and it was in the ocean. We're on the coast here in South Carolina. It was maybe 15 minutes from my house, and some friends who used to do triathlon, they came down to support me, and they helped me set up my transition area. It was in like March, so we were in wetsuits. And I had trained in a wetsuit. I had trained in the ocean. I had done all this practice that, I felt like was enough. And we get to the race start, and it's a mass start into the ocean. And like a couple of minutes in, I felt like I couldn't catch my breath. And I didn't know that this was normal to experience in the swim, that your, endorphins and your anxiety and your just all the things can happen and you're underwater and so not breathing. So I started to panic about my panic, which is not helpful. And I'm trying to talk to myself, like, you know how to swim, and like, what is wrong with you? And why can't you breathe? So I'm just struggling through the swim, like mom swimming, doggy paddle swimming, just all the things. And there's a jet skier kind of helping people not swim out to sea. And you were allowed to hold on as long as they didn't move you through the course. And so I put my hand on there, and I was like, I can do this, right? And he goes, I don't know. I was like, oh man. Well, and all I could hear was my brother, who I'm very good friends with. We're very close. He was trying to tell me that I should do a smaller distance as my first one, and that it was crazy to do this ocean one. And I could just hear him being like, I told you so. And like, if I stopped. So I had to keep going so that he couldn't tell me that. And I was maybe second to last or third to last out of the ocean that day. I mean, just so grateful to put my feet on the sand. I go to my bike. I didn't know you were supposed to pump your tires every time. That bike ended up with a flat tire, but I didn't know until after the finish. And by that time, the tire was fully deflated. But during the race, it was just like getting flat. So I was just like, why is this so hard? Like, but I finished. I mean, by the time I got to the run, I felt amazing because the run was my strength at that time. And I, finished. I had already at that point signed up for the next one. So I was like, I'll at least do that one, but I don't know if this is going to keep being my thing. But by the time I did the second one and I was slightly more prepared, then I knew that it was just so much fun and I wanted to keep doing it. So I signed up for several more that year and got my husband involved, and it was great. But I would have loved to have had like a different first time where that built my confidence instead of like scared me to death. Yeah. So that's my first triathlon story.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. I appreciate it so much, and I think the reason why is for the very reason what you said at the end. I wish I would have had a different first time experience. But if you would have had a different first time experience, you might not be a co-founder or owner of She Tries.
That's true.
And so sometimes when you think about it in retrospect, our experiences and the things that we go through help to make us better suited and prepared to help others because of what we've gone through and experienced. And so you remember that. And when you're curating these events, you're thinking about that. And that's why people can have a fun, memorable experience as their first time versus somebody who may not put the same um, level of effort in it because they were always great. Or, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, not that you're not great, but you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
people have a different mindset depending on how you come into the race. And so I find it that, and I hate this so much, but yet I love it, It's like that everything happens for a reason and timing is everything. And if you would have done it, say 2 years later, you might have been this, it just might have been a different experience. And so
Right.
I guess I'm saying I'm grateful that you did have the experience you did, because that probably helps to go into the thinking of how you want other women to feel and how you want other racers to feel when they come to your races.
Yeah, that's you hit the nail on the head. It really is. I can remember those feelings like it was yesterday, and I see the nervousness on the faces of the women standing around the pool, and in those moments, Angie and I go around and we say, like, "You've got this. You know, you can do this. And you've
Mhm.
already done the hardest part. You got up this morning and you put on your stuff and you showed up to the swimming pool. So hardest part's out of the way. Like you can do this." And we go and we talk to each woman around the pool before they get going. I mean, that's why we do what we do.
Love it. So you do your first one, you come back and you'd already registered for number two. Then you come and do some other ones. You bring other people along, including your husband. So when did you decide that you wanted to be in the business of trying?
Well, I've always had an entrepreneurial like passion. And that's actually how I met Angie originally. I had a different small business unrelated to sport. But she was managing a triathlon store at the time. And so when I went in to train, when I was training for that first triathlon, I went into this triathlon store and I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm supposed to wear. What do I buy? And she loved helping women and she was really good at it. And she said, here's a couple options. Here's your cheapest option. Here's your most expensive option. Here's somewhere in between. You're going to need these 6 items. And I bought everything she said. And like I kept most of that stuff until very recently when I had to really clean out my closet for renovation, because it was good stuff and it was perfect. So we kind of hit it off and we maintained a friendship over the years, really helped by social media. So fast forward, I get through that year of doing my first triathlons, and then I get pregnant and I start a family. And I, as much as I wanted to be a super fit pregnant lady and do runs and triathlons while pregnant, I did not have those kinds of pregnancies. So I took the next few years off and took care of myself and, the kids and kind of got into that groove. And after my second son was born, I a friend challenged me to try a triathlon again. I had gotten back into running because that's kind of the easiest thing to start back, easy in that it's like right out your front door, not in that running is easy. And so I got back into that and I did some more sprint tries the year after he was born and I was like, oh wow, like this feels good again. I didn't wasn't sure that I'd come back. It was maybe a year later, Angie said, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to bring this chapter of Try It for Life to Charleston. And so I helped her with the nonprofit side, getting that chapter going. We were founding members and we helped mentor women. And then they trained for the event in North Carolina. And the next year she started She Tries. I participated. Then I volunteered after that. And so I think I participated 2016 and 27. I volunteered and I volunteered again in 2018. And at the end of 2018, I said, I'd like to be your partner. Do you ever think about having a partner? And I said, I don't want to diminish what you've built, but I just love what you're doing. And I think I could bring some energy to it and help you with the workload and, whatever. And she was like, you're the best person I could think of to be a partner. And so we hashed out the details and that happened in 2018. And I just loved having that. I love having a partner. I love the puzzle of entrepreneurship and I love the outcome of what we do. I mean, the testimonials and the um, like creative design of how we're going to make it even better and more welcoming and fun for women. So they're not just crossing the finish line and going home, like they want to stay and have a party. So that's, I don't know, we're pretty pumped up about those things, and we make a good team.
I'm almost a little in my feels that she's not here.
I know. Well, if you know Angie and me, like the more you'll get to know us. And I also think that she's kind of everyone's favorite. So it's like everyone, like, they love her story because she was, the original founder. But I'm the talker. And so like she podcasts are something that are not like, she's not gonna like jump on immediately. Now, if I had begged her, she would have done it. And so maybe next time we'll get one with the two of us. She's just got a great story herself of what she overcame to get into the sport and stay in the sport. But yeah, she's a really cool person.
And it's interesting because my next question was going to be like, what is one of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome? And so we love to hear everyone has a story and everyone's story is important. And so next time we definitely will have to get the two of you
Mhm.
on together. I love just I love people. And so I love hearing, all the intricacies of how they got started, where they are now, and all that good stuff. But so
Yeah.
shout out to you, Angie. We are excited that you started this and you got your best friend, partner, Sarah, in the mix. So we are here for it. So, Sarah, for you, what is some of the barriers that you've had to overcome in sport that you could probably help to inspire women who are perhaps overcoming? I heard you talk about being a mom and how you was like, I was not going to be one of those fit pregnancy moms,
Well, I
or
wanted to be, it just didn't happen.
right, didn't happen. So yeah, so tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly, just coming back into taking care of myself in that way was, I had a couple of tough, um, pregnancy moments and birth moments, and I really wasn't sure that I would ever run again or that I would ever do any sort of race again. Because you just feel like that is permanent, that recovery is permanent. So, it took a long time to feel like I could maintain something for longer than 5 or 10 minutes, and I really had to build slowly back into that. But then it became my me time, like my focus. Like once I started feeling good doing these things, then I kind of became addicted to it because I had little kids. So I was constantly needed and pulled in a lot of directions. But once I walked out the door for that thing, that was my time. And so it was very precious to me. And I met great friends who encouraged me during that. And then I ultimately hired a coach because what I found was tough for me was knowing what to do and when and how to be prepared without overtraining and how to improve in some way. And that was, I've been working with the same coach now since 2016, I want to say. And yeah, maybe 2015 even. And she's, kind of been with me on all the journeys of rebuilding to getting, in probably the best shape of my life to COVID times, post COVID times, and now in my 40s, and everything's shaping up differently in life. I feel like that's my hurdle now is like figuring out what this body wants to do at my in my 40s and not try to go back to, you know, what was, in my peak performance days, I guess, if I can call it that. So,
You repeated that you were 40 twice because when you first came on, I was like, oh my God, you look like you're in your 20s. That was my thought, but
oh
I
my goodness, I
didn't
love
want to
to
be
hear.
rude and ask, like, well, how old are you? Because I feel like that's a very rude thing to ask. But I was just like, you look so young and to be in your 40s. Listen, whatever you're doing, keep it up because
Thanks.
you
Thank you.
definitely have a very youthful presence. But the one thing you said at the end is that I don't want to be trying to, well, essentially, the way I heard it was you don't want to measure up to who you used to be.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I had that like epiphany a couple of weeks ago. When you start looking at your old performances of when you first started, it might have been faster and had,
Mhm.
less aches and crakes, going through your
Yeah.
body. And you want to, be that person again. And you're like, well, life has happened. More stuff has happened. Stop. Don't compare yourself to who you used to be. Measure yourself from where you are now. How do you do that in a way that's constructive that you will, that you can help other women not do that as well? Because I think we as women kind of struggle with that a little bit.
Mhm.
And so I would love to see like what are some of your strategies and tips that you have for that?
Well, I mean, if we'll be real honest, I go to therapy once a month. I find that very helpful to learn ways to talk to myself that are better than how I probably used to. But also, I like, for example, my kids like to run now, and they're both faster than me, but they like to sign up for 5Ks. And so I've made it more about it's the family event and like we're just out here together. I want them to know that like you don't have to PR every time and you don't have to be number one. And yes, it's fun to get an age group award or whatever, but it's like you can have other reasons for doing these 5K events, for example. This year, Charleston has a race every year called the Cooper River Bridge Run. It's huge and has tens of thousands of people. And it's been like one of my favorite events every year. And I almost didn't do it because I started down that path of, I just don't, I'm never going to be as fast as I used to be. And I don't think I feel so good running. And, it hurts and I'm slow and whatever. But I knew that I'd miss the energy. I mean, it's just the best day in Charleston. So I was like, all right, we're just going to do it. We're just going to see what happens. And I didn't have a goal pace. My kid and my husband were ahead of me in a different corral. So I wasn't trying to keep up with anybody. I didn't even have a buddy with me in this event. So I wasn't like strategic, trying to figure out how to stay together with somebody, which can be really stressful. Um, and it was delightful. I mean, I really felt the best I have felt. I was like just enjoying the run, and I ended up having a decent time, all things considered, but especially considering how I felt leading up to it. And I just try to change the perspective of why I'm out there, and just to be grateful that I can still do these things. I mean, I can still run. It might not be a 7-minute mile, but can still move my body in that way. And we all have friends who, for whatever reason, are unable to do those things, especially as we get older, and friends getting diagnosed with different things. So there's some level of gratitude at just being able to challenge your body in that way, but not with the expectation of some sort of trophy, even a competition with your past self. So I, I try to have that conversation.
Well, we 100% are in agreement with therapy around here. We know that therapy works. And so that is a good place to start for those of you who need it. And I love that you mentioned Cooper River Bridge. My mentor was just inducted into their Hall of Fame. He's been doing race announcing for them for 25 years. And so for him, he's been talking about it for like forever. And so, congratulations to you for doing it and feeling good about your race that you showed up for yourself and for nobody else. And
Yeah.
so that's what it's about. So you had the same coach for since 20, I think 2016 you said maybe or
Maybe 2015.
15. Okay.
I'm trying to remember when exactly it was. It might have been, yeah, somewhere around in there. It's a long way.
So how do you find time to balance planning triathlons, being a mom, running a business because the business part happens during the off season and training yourself and participating in races.
It's getting harder, I will say. When my kids were smaller, it was somehow easier because they had less of a life going on. So less of a social life, less of an athletic life, let's say. Um, so there was more time for me in some way. Although now they're a little more independent, they have more activities. So um, and now with the business growing, it's gone from kind of part-time to more full-time work.
Mhm.
So I have found that to be a challenge, but Angie and I both work from our home offices, and then we conference with each other basically daily now. And we kind of hold each other accountable with our workouts. So I know that Tuesdays and Thursdays are generally her swim days. So I try not to schedule something with her when I know that she's going to be in the pool. And she knows my Mondays and Wednesday mornings are a spin. And then I have like one other thing in the app, like a little bit later. Now, the whole way getting to those places, if my husband's driving, because we often train together, I am working in the car until we
Mhm.
get there. And then I take my hour and then I get back in the car and I work until, the next thing. So there's a lot of non-traditional hours, I would say, in getting the business work done. I do try to get most of the workouts done in the morning just or by mid morning because I'm much more of a morning person than evening person when it comes to training. I can find way more things I want to do at night, like put my pajamas on and chill out.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so yeah, that it can be challenging. And our kids' activities tend to be in the evening. So, I want to be there for their games and stuff, but I try to get it done in the morning, and having the coach helps kind of get me out on the days that maybe I don't really feel like doing something. Um, so I mean, I am paying her, so I should not waste that. But she also knows my schedule, so she's not gonna, put too much on there. Now, for example, my husband's training for a half Ironman right now that he just signed up for. I'm not even putting that on my calendar. There's like that bandwidth is not here right now. Now,
Mhm.
5K, 10K, sprint try, I could probably swing that, but
Mhm.
not anything bigger at the moment while we're getting adjusted to this growth.
Speaking of um, doing a sprint try or a triathlon, how is it being on the opposite end, race directing, and then going to a triathlon that maybe you're not putting on? And are you constantly thinking about what you could do differently or what you like instead of actually racing?
Yeah, I actually love that now. I feel like I'm so much more aware of the effort that race directors put into their events. So Angie and I often are taking pictures of things and saying, like, this is really cool. I wish we could do this, or maybe we can do this next year. Like the maps that some of them produce are so beautiful. And I would love to have maps like theirs. But right now, like we design them in Canva, and that's, yeah, we got what we got. And when I appreciate the volunteers and I notice them, I see them more because I know how hard it is to find volunteers and to get people out there for events. So I guess I'm just more aware of that. And when I see things done well, I like take pictures, and sometimes I send the race director a note and let them know, like, this was awesome. This was really, I loved this. I always answer their surveys. Um, every now and then we see things that we're like, yeah, we probably wouldn't do it that way, or they should have had more, could have had more volunteers at this spot. This was confusing. Angie's had her daughter get like lost on a youth race course before, like things like that, that we're like, okay,
Mm.
that, yeah, let's try to make sure that doesn't happen at our event. So, but yeah, it's interesting being on the other side.
And have you found a distance that you prefer?
Hmm. I really like the Olympic distance. But I, yeah, I think that's my favorite distance. I just haven't done that many of them. There's one nearby and it's an ocean swim. I made peace with the ocean after that first one. And that was after I hired my coach, because I was like, I will never do another ocean swim. She's like, okay. And then I was like, maybe I'll do an ocean swim. And she's like, I thought so. So she helped me get prepared for that a little bit better. Um, and I like that distance. I like that you have to like really train for it. You can't just, well, in my opinion, you can't just show up for it. You can spend some time like getting in the groove. So with the sprint distances, I mean, I love them. Obviously, we put them on and I just find them like spunky and fun. You can go all out and then you're just done. Um, but like, I think I take a little time to get going. And so I like that I have like a couple of miles to catch my breath before I really like try to speed up. And so I like that about the Olympic distance. But it doesn't consume your whole weekend. So that's nice.
I'm just talking without the microphone, keeping it on mute. But no, that's important to know. Uh, that's important to know in terms of your investment that you're putting in on the weekend and what you really want out of it. Well, with that said, I want to talk about the emotions of it all. Like the emotions of being an athlete racing and the emotions of being a race director. Tell us about your emotions that went through your mind. Obviously, we know that it was a little traumatizing for your first race, but also the first race that you actually helped to produce.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the athlete side, I think every time I've done an event, anytime I've like crossed a finish line, there have been moments in those races where I thought that I wouldn't, that I was like, I might be hitting a wall. I feel not amazing. This is so hard. Why do I sign up for these things? Why can't I be a couch potato? Like, why can't I have a different hobby? I mean, probably every single one. And then I like kind of talk myself through that. And I'm like, well, yeah, you say this every time, and then you're happy you did it. And then I get to the finish line and I've overcome something every time, like whether it's coming back from injury, just trying a new distance or getting back in the sport, whatever it is. And it always just feels so good. And it's very emotional for me. And now my kids will often be at the finish line. They don't really enjoy being at race events. So um, it's a lot of waiting around. But they are getting more into it. So that's emotional for me, for them to see us just trying and like doing these things. From a race director perspective, it's just even more so. I mean, there's a lot of times leading up to it that you're like, is everything going to pull together? Are all the volunteers going to show up? Is the food gonna arrive? Like all these little things that like make or break your event. And you're just like, what if, this kind of stuff. And Angie calls it like race magic, that like it comes together. It's just gonna work out. I mean, we work our butts off to make it work out, but it's gonna work out. And then on the day, you're just we get flooded with emails, text messages, instant messages from like social media, from women with like every story you can think of overcoming cancer, like surgeries, divorce, weight loss, whatever it is, they have a story. And I mean, we've already gotten some leading into this May event. Um, and it's just like how we hold it together. I don't know. I think we're just running on fumes by that point. And so there is just not enough to produce the tears, but it is so inspiring what these women accomplish and what they go on to do afterwards. And we get to hear those stories, and like either firsthand at the event or within the days following. And it's just really great.
I like that. I like how the race magic just comes together. And that definitely happens with all the hard work. Like you've done it all and it just happens. So kudos to you. Can you tell me about any of your triathlon accomplishments or a breakthrough that you had?
Oh, well, I several years ago, the duathlon championships were in South Carolina in Greenville, back-to-back years. I guess it was in 2018 and 2019, or 2019 and 2020. I guess 2018 and 2019. And I had not really done duathlon, but I was like, it's in Greenville. It's in my state. Like, I should just go see what happens. So I did the sprint distance and the standard, which is kind of like a Olympic-ish distance. And I placed, and I got to go represent USA in Spain, and I got to do that in 2 back-to-back years. Well, they would have been back-to-back. It ended up being in 2021,
One.
in Spain. But anyway, so that was just a really, like, surprising to me outcome and crazy unique experience to get to wear a Team USA kit and go overseas and, see people that had been like, there were people that had been doing this for decades. They'd been training for these different multi-sport events and placing in their age group and getting to go represent. So I think our days of qualifying are on hold right now with everything else going on, but it was a cool experience. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think of just honestly just like feeling good when I finished was such a great thing. I do have a crazy story where I mistook a officer's direction on a bike course
Mm.
at and it was at my favorite one, and he was telling someone to stop, and I thought he was telling me to turn, but he was telling us a car to stop, and so I turned, and and I wasn't around many cyclists at that time. There was one other one that I had been neck and neck with, and I thought she turned too, but then I looked back and she hadn't turned, so then I was confused. I met up with the course though, and so I thought, well, that must have been the right turn. Well, it wasn't, and I ended up cutting like 3 miles of the course, and so I was disqualified, but I crossed the finish line before everybody else, so they thought I was the winner. So it happens to the best of us, and I tell that story to people who get lost on the course a lot, and it's, a bruised ego a lot, but yeah, that was a crazy story.
The
I
time
can't,
that came in first.
yeah,
Oh man.
everything. It was amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate hearing your story and I appreciate what you're doing with She Tries and congratulations on the growth. And I've already said it, so we know 2 more races are going to come. So it'll be 8 by maybe 2025 or
Great.
2026. So we just say, come on, more growth, more increase.
That's right.
And
Let's go.
yeah, let's go. But I can't let you leave without our rapid fire. So we're going to go into rapid fire.
Ready.
If I'm ready, that's the problem. No, I'm just kidding. I'm like, oh, where do I start? Where do I start? Um, favorite place to bike?
Um, the Francis Marion National Forest here. I ride gravel a lot.
Okay. Real food or gels for race nutrition?
Percent gels all the way.
Taper week, love it or hate it?
Uh, I love it. Yeah, these days I love it.
Any race superstitions or pre-race rituals you have?
Yeah, I make my husband grilled chicken the night before. I get really antsy if we're not here and I have to like eat something else. I've gotten a little bit better about it, but I used to be like pretty mean about it. Like I need this particular food. And I always have oatmeal the morning of and coffee. Like I have the same exact foods every time. I used to be very superstitious about the towel that I would use in transition. We had these champagne towels. My husband and I both had them that we got at some fun event, and we looked so silly because they were very bright and colorful. But
Mhm.
um, I used to always like feel like that made a difference in my, I don't know, in my day if I had that towel.
Okay. Okay. Um, swim in a wetsuit or without?
If it's an option, I swim with it.
Okay.
It's hardly ever that cold here, though.
Mm. Running with compression socks or regular socks?
Oh, regular
Okay.
or no socks.
Best triathlon advice you've received?
Mm. To when you're in transition, especially when you're getting ready for the bike, to try to put everything like when you're bending down on and grab all the things so that you're not bending up and down more than once and getting lightheaded.
Mm. A piece of advice for a beginner who's looking to try?
That we all started at the beginning, and just like take the training and do it little by little, and you'll be ready.
And final question. Do you pee on the bike or get off and take a proper pee break?
Could ask this one. I can't pee on the bike, but I don't get off. I mean, unless I'm training. In a race, I just hold it. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that your bladder gets a break these days now so that you don't have to hold it. I would be so miserable. Oh my gosh. But,
Well, I don't do that many long ones, so that's
yeah.
fine. That's what the
Well,
ocean's for.
hey, there it is. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. We have this saying here on Try Beginner's Luck, whenever you try, you always win. And with that said, we do have a segment on YouTube called Ask a Coach. So if you have questions, we got answers. We have 2 resident coaches who are ready to answer any of your questions. So be sure to email us at tblpodbiz@trybeginnersluck.com and we'll get that answer. But until next time, I am Ashonda Shines and we're out. Peace. Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you always win.